Abortion is legal in Canada, but it's not a settled issue, as some claim. A sizable number of Canadians still oppose the termination of the unborn, but now the question is, do these people have the right to freely express their opinions? A recent court decision in Lethbridge ruled in favor of free speech. Our guest today is Carol Crosson, a Calgary Constitutional Lawyer who's been representing Lethbridge and District Prolife in their court case with the City of Lethbridge. She joins me now via Skype from Airdrie. Carol, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Hi, nice to be with you.
Carol, can you maybe share some of the backstory with our viewers about this case?
Certainly, Jeanette. Well, this started a few years ago when my client, Lethbridge Prolife, approached the city inquiring as to posting an ad called "Preborn Babies Feel Pain" on bus benches and on the exterior of buses. And the city initially agreed after some time. It took about 14 months for the city to agree, but the city eventually posted that ad. And shortly thereafter, the city pulled the ad, and the city said its reasons for pulling the ad was on the basis of adverse community reaction. And so Lethbridge Prolife attempted to work back and forth with the city to find out how it could adjust the ad and to negotiate with the city on reposting the ad. Eventually, when that proved fruitless, Lethbridge Prolife approached the city with 5 new ads. And those ads ranged anything from captions saying, "Human rights should not depend upon where you are," with a picture of a pregnant woman on one side of the ad and the same woman holding a baby on the other side of the ad, an ad with me, again, still me, 3 pictures of unborn children, and then finally a healthy newborn child on the other side of the ad. Equality should begin in the womb, with a picture of a pregnant woman. Birth did not transform me into a child, with a picture of a healthy little baby. And life should be the most fundamental human right. So those were the 5 ads at issue, and the city rejected those ads for a variety of reasons. And because of that rejection, Lethbridge Prolife went to court, filed a notice of application for a judicial review of that decision. That came before the court in October of last year. And we just received the decision from the court, a 48-page decision with some wonderful gems, I must say, Jeanette, on the right to freedom of expression.
So the court ruled in your favor then, right, declaring that the City of Lethbridge acted unreasonably when it banned the ads.
Yes, that's true. And the court did for a variety of reasons, and the reasons give us some wonderful content for the right to free speech, not only in regard to those who are sharing a message about abortion, but those who are sharing really any kind of message across Canada. So coming out and saying that every individual has the right to freedom of expression, even if people complain about the message, that every individual in Canada has a right to free speech, even if people are upset with what they say, that the right to free speech exists even if some believe that the message is inaccurate. The court said that government can't rely solely on a private regulator or private opinion in order to reject free speech, and that government must act in an unbiased fashion, not take the side of one side of a message to the exclusion of another. It's a wonderful ruling for individuals all across the country.
But wasn't there a complaint that the ads were misleading and contained inaccurate information? What was the ruling on that?
Well, the court really gave us some strong content on that. The court said that inaccuracy is not a basis to prohibit free speech. In fact, the court said that there is no support for the idea that expression must be widely accepted, accurate, or scientifically verifiable in order to be protected. And that's an important issue right now, Jeanette. where our society is really has a big focus on false news or inaccuracy. And so if an individual has to prove that their opinion, and this is just opinion, is accurate in order for that opinion to be protected, that's a bar that few individuals could ever meet.
And it seems that there's many in our society that feel that if unpopular and offensive viewpoints are expressed, and if there's a public outcry, then shutting down those opinions is justified. So did the judge have anything to say about that?
Well, the judge agreed that the right to free speech is for the majority opinion. He said that freedom of expression is meant to protect minority opinions from being drowned out by the majority. And he also spoke to the issue of upset, because there's the idea often that you have the right to free speech unless you offend someone or upset someone. Well, he said the opposite. He said that a strong and healthy democracy requires a willingness on the part of the public to accept that the expression of opinion and ideas may at times shock, offend, and even disturb people.
Oh, interesting.
He came out very strong, but you know, his opinion does not vary from the jurisprudence in Canada on free speech. It in fact strongly accords with that jurisprudence. That's what the court has said for years.
Okay, now the court also found that the city was biased because in part the city only looked at the negative responses to the ads and didn't take into consideration positive responses as well. So any idea why government bodies seem to do this so often?
I think sometimes the state loses sight of the fact that they're to be neutral on issues, and sometimes perhaps their personal opinions play into their decision making. And so this is a return, this decision is a return to the idea that the state has a duty to remain neutral on these issues and to treat both parties fairly.
What are the options now for Lethbridge Prolife? Can they now freely run the ads again, or could the city once again refuse to allow them?
Well, Lethbridge Prolife now will go back to the city and apply to run those ads. And that's usually the result of a judicial review application that's successful.
Okay, interesting. So how do you respond to the argument that free speech has limits? The issue of free speech isn't limited to just this topic, of course. There are so many other controversial issues, right?
Right. Well, you know, free speech does have its limits. And in the court judgment, Justice Gates referred to those limits in referencing another case at the Alberta Court of Appeal. And in that case, the justice said that speech that breaks the law, illegal speech, is not permitted under our Constitution. And this in no way was illegal, hateful speech. It didn't breach the criminal code. It didn't breach human rights legislation. And so those are the appropriate limits that apply to freedom of expression.
And then talking about like how there's so many other controversial issues out there. So there's been issues where university professors, for example, are being suspended or fired for simply inviting civil debate and discussion. So why does this kind of thing seem to scare academic leaders? This used to be what universities were all about, right?
Yes, it's very unfortunate, Jeanette, and a lot of what I do is litigation in the area of free speech. And it's unfortunate when society starts to move in the direction of muzzling viewpoints that personal individuals, you know, they feel are upsetting or offensive, or that they don't accord with their message, because the very lifeblood of a democracy is the exchange of ideas. Justice Gates cited an old case in the judgment where he says history has repeatedly demonstrated that the first step taken by totalitarian regimes is to muzzle the media and then the individual in order to prevent the dissemination of views and opinions that may be contrary to those of the government. We don't want to see that happen, because that same judgment said if these exchanges are stifled, democratic government is threatened. The only way we move ahead in society is if people feel free to have civil debate on issues. And in the past, that's how we've progressed. At the time certain messages come out, they're often not appreciated, and there is some pushback, but our society progresses when we move ahead. We think of many of the movements in the past that at their time there was a lot of upset created. I think of the civil rights movement, I think of the suffragette movement, a lot of the issues that now we accept, issues to do with racism and equal treatment, that we accept there should be equality and fairness because individuals years ago spoke out when there was some pushback and some change was made because of it. We can't afford not to let voices today speak out in like manner.
I think you just answered my next question. So if the movement towards stifling debate and free speech should actually prevail in Canada, what would the consequences be for our society?
Well, I think the consequences, Jeanette, would be that we as guardians of the gate, those who are trying to protect these long-held fundamental freedoms, would see the erosion of those freedoms. There's a wonderful quote from an old case, and I love to quote it, and Justice Gates quoted it as well, where in an old case, justice from the Supreme Court of Canada said that freedom of expression is a little less vital to man's mind and spirit as breathing is to his physical existence. These long-held freedoms are in the heart, I believe, of every individual. And if we don't watch carefully, the right to express ourselves, that age-old principle, will be eroded. And it's so crucial to our soul, just like breathing is to our physical existence, that we need to guard that right for expression on either side of every issue so that we can continue to flourish as a democracy.
And looking ahead, Carol, where do you see the free speech issue and also the abortion issue headed over the next decade or so?
Well, I can't really speak to the abortion issue myself because I'm a free speech lawyer, and that's really the legal basis on which I stand to support these clients. But I can speak to free speech, and I hope that all of us are vigilant in guarding that right so that 10 years from now, Jeanette, as we project, there will be still the free expression, the free exchange of ideas so that we can move forward to see further progress in our society.
And with that, Carol, it looks like we are about out of time. Carol Crosson is a Calgary Constitutional Lawyer out of Airdrie, Alberta. Carol, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Jeanette. Happy to be with you.